said this all the time. I don't have any skeletons in my closet. Not a single skeleton. I've been married. I got married when I was 22 years old. I've been married for 31 years. I've never cheated on my wife. I've never thought about cheating on my wife. I don't drink. I don't take pills. I have no skeletons in my closet. Therefore, I am an absolute open book. I'm not afraid to answer my critics, answer any questions you have. So, you know, if there's any wrestling topics, please, at the end of this, I'll answer anything that you have. But, you know, I want to start a little bit about telling my story where I think by the time you leave here, you will have a better understanding of who I am, especially since, you know, and I appreciate this more than you guys will ever know. Obviously, the people here follow me. And without you guys, I would have never had a career. I mean, it's that simple. The Attitude Era could have been, you know, the greatest thing since mankind. If nobody went to see it, it wouldn't have mattered. And trust me, I know that and I understand that. And on top of it, I really appreciate those that understood it. That there was a level to really understanding what you were seeing. And obviously, if you people are here, you understood that. So, like, I appreciate that more than anything. But with me, I was molded really, really early on. I remember I was probably about 12 years old, and I was sitting in a room by myself, and at that time, you know, a lot of you guys are younger in here, but like there wasn't even remote control at that time, and there were about 3 television channels in the States. You got 3 television channels, and then, I don't know if you guys had this here, you had these channels called UHF. Did you guys have that here? They're like way higher on the channel scale. You know, they're local television shows. They always come in snowy. You could barely see them, but they were still channels. So when you only have 3 main channels, the UHF channels mean something because now you got a total of 5 channels. So here's the funny thing. When you're a kid, you constantly flip through those 5 channels and like nothing's on, and for some reason you think if you keep flipping through them, something's going to come on. Nothing's on. It's much like British TV over here now. But anyway, so, you know, I'm flipping through the channels, and I mean, literally, I'm 12. So I'm going to be 54 soon. We're talking 42 years ago. And I'll never forget this. I mean, I can remember this like it was yesterday. As I'm flipping through the UHF channels, all of a sudden there's an interview going on. And the interviewer didn't really catch my eye. Some creepy looking guy with a big pompadour. I think he called himself Vince. It was the people he was interviewing. And the first people I had the privilege of seeing when I was exposed to wrestling, that very first interview, and I don't know how many of you guys know this because again, I'm dating myself, it was 40 years ago, but it was Luscious Jimmy, Handsome Johnny, it was the Valley Brothers, and it was Captain Lou Albano. Now, I don't know if all of you have had experience in this room seeing Lou Albano. I mean, when you look at today's product and you look at those 3 guys I just told you about, it's how it got from that to this is an absolute joke. I have no idea. But anyway, immediately when I saw this promo, I was mesmerized. And I knew, like literally that, you know, from there they went to the action and they went to wrestling. I knew immediately what it was. I knew the wrestling wasn't real. I knew this was a work, but I knew I loved these characters and I loved these stories. As a 12-year-old kid, that's what I was first drawn to when I watched professional wrestling. So right there tells you where my roots in wrestling are. And, you know, from there, you know, I would see such great characters as and again, I'm probably throwing names out there that you guys don't remember, but, you know, Chief J. Strongbow, you know, the big cat Ernie Ladd, Bruno Sammartino was God. And forget, Hulk Hogan's great. I'm never going to downplay Hulk Hogan, but Bruno, if you were an Italian kid growing up in New York, Bruno was God. He was just God. The characters back then, 72, 73, were off the charts, unbelievable. So that hooked me on this product. Then, of course, WrestleMania 1 would come. And, you know, that really put wrestling on the map. Again, a lot of you probably weren't even around for WrestleMania 1. WrestleMania 1, there was no pay-per-view, there was no on-demand. You had to go to a movie theater to see WrestleMania 1 on closed-circuit TV. I remember back then, I was so cheap back then, I wouldn't spend the money to go see WrestleMania as bad as I wanted to go. But here was the bad thing. There was no place to get results. Like literally, if you didn't go see it, you don't know what happened. And I mean, I can vividly remember WrestleMania took place on a Sunday. I had to wait till the following Saturday because the WWE was on Saturday nights then. I had to wait a week to know what the results of WrestleMania were. There was no computer, there was nothing. But obviously, at that time, the business took off. You know, WrestleMania 1, yeah, WrestleMania 3. I was at WrestleMania 4 and 5 in Atlantic City. And again, you know, everything up to that point, character-driven and stories. That's what everything was. The characters were larger than life. They were not people you would run into on the street. They were movie stars. And that was always the appeal to me. And, you know, like I said, the tradition continued from the Valiants to WrestleMania. You know, then you got guys like Hogan, then you got guys like Savage, then you got guys like Ted DiBiase. But again, this was all character-driven television. And it's what I grew up on. I was never interested in the matches. I would watch the matches. I knew, listen, even back then, you knew what the outcome of the matches were going to be. If you were a wrestling fan and you followed wrestling, you knew what the outcome was going to be. So that's why I wasn't a big fan of it. I wanted to see everything that happened in between. I wanted to see the promos. Does anybody remember Fuji Vice and Fuji Bandito? You guys remember any of that? Some of the best television back in that era, way before its time. So anyway, I go off to college and I kind of lose touch with wrestling. You know, I just didn't have time to watch it anymore. And I also want to say I was never I was never a wrestling fanatic. I mean, I enjoyed watching the product because it was very entertaining, but I was not a die-hard wrestling fan. I never was. I was just entertained by it. But then basically, I go away to college, and I come back to college, and I lost touch with wrestling a little bit. I came back from college, and I kind of picked up on wrestling again. That was Savage and Hogan, the Mega Powers, you know, all that stuff was going on. Still character-driven, still great television. At that time, I want to get into the ups and downs a little bit now, so you understand how this journey went up and down like this. I got married. I went to college in Evansville, Indiana. That's where I met my wife. So when I graduated college, I had one of two choices. It was either you get married or you break up with this girl, because I was going back to New York. I was really in love with my wife. I made the choice to get married at 22 years old. But in doing that, I had to give up all the dreams and aspirations I had, because now I was responsible for another human being. So if it were me, when I graduated from college, I I would have went directly to LA. I would have got involved in television, film, whatever I had to do. That was the dream. But when I met my wife and I knew I was now responsible for another human being, I had to scratch those plans. So now at 22 years old, because I was responsible for a wife, now I just have to get a job. I have to support my wife. And my very first job out of college was, I had a territory in Long Island, Staten Island, Queens, and Brooklyn. And I had about 30 colleges. And I had to sell the professors the textbooks that they use for their class. Now you guys have to imagine this. You know me now at my age, and like there's very little I know. I know stuff about the things I want to know about. The other things, like, I could care less. You're never going to have a political discussion with me. I don't care about economics. I don't care about Wall Street. I don't care about any of that stuff. So now you got to imagine a 22-year-old kid. I had to go in the departments and meet with teachers who were experts in their field, from calculus to physics, to philosophy, to history, to nursing, to everything you can imagine. At 22 years old, I had to go sell these professors these textbooks when they knew everything about their field. I knew nothing, and I had to try to hold a conversation with them. Okay? So I think it's safe to say, out of the chute, I absolutely hated what I was doing. But I had to take care of my wife.